What if fixing a stranger's car on a quiet country road could change the course of history? This is the story of Mia Johnson, a 10-year-old girl with a gift no one saw coming. A simple act of kindness unraveled a billion-dollar conspiracy, toppled a corrupt empire, and rebuilt lives from the ashes of exploitation. But the real question isn't how she exposed the truth. It's what happened after. Because sometimes justice isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of something much greater. Stay with us. You won't believe where this journey leads next. The late afternoon sun scorched the quiet country road as Mia Johnson, a 10-year-old girl with bright eyes and purposeful steps, made her way home from school. The dusty asphalt shimmered with heat, but Maya's gaze locked onto something unusual just ahead. A gleaming red Shelby GT500 Mustang parked on the shoulder, hood popped open like a wounded beast. Beside it stood a sharply dressed white man, pacing furiously and barking into his phone. His suit, watch, and polished shoes looked wildly out of place in this working-class, predominantly black town, nestled 2 hours outside of Boston. "I don't care how much it costs," the man snapped. "I've been stranded here for 2 hours. I've got a meeting with the governor. This can't be happening." He checked his oversized gold watch and groaned. Maya paused. Aunt Renee's voice echoed in her mind. Don't talk to strangers, especially the rich, angry kind. But something in the man's desperation tugged at her. She adjusted the strap on her worn backpack, which held not only books but a small metal box Uncle Leon, a mechanic and her part-time guardian, had made her carry everywhere. "You never know," he'd said, "when someone might need help." "Excuse me, sir," Maya said gently, stepping toward the car. "Do you need help with your engine?" The man looked up, startled. His name was Andrew Whitaker, CEO of Whitaker Enterprises and one of Boston's most influential real estate moguls. His frown deepened when he saw the girl, colorful braids, faded shorts, and an MIT t-shirt that clearly belonged to someone else. "That's sweet of you, honey," he said, forcing a smile. "But this is a high-performance machine. I need a real mechanic." Unbothered, Maya shrugged and walked right up to the hood. "My uncle runs a garage. I've been learning cars since I could walk. I can at least take a look." Before Andrew could object, she had dropped her backpack, pulled her braids back, and leaned over the engine like she'd done it 100 times. "When did it start acting up?" she asked with practiced calm. Andrew sighed. "About 40 minutes ago. It overheated, then just died." "Did you smell something sweet, like syrup?" He blinked. "Now that you mention it, yeah. How'd you know?" "Coolant leak," she said, pointing to a small puddle below the car. "Right there, probably a cracked radiator hose." Andrew was stunned. There was something oddly familiar about this child, the way she focused, the confident tilt of her head. He watched as she pulled out a special tape from her kit, patched the hose, and explained how it would hold until he could get into town. Just as Maya tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, Andrew's breath caught. There, dangling from her finger, was a ring. An emerald stone set in antique gold, the band tied with thread to keep it from sliding off her small hand. But it wasn't just any ring. It was the ring, the very one he had given to a little girl at the Little Angels orphanage more than a decade ago. A ring with a crescent-shaped flaw only he would recognize. His voice faltered. "That ring, where did you get it?" Maya looked down. "It was my adoptive mom's. Diana. She passed away last year." She hesitated, her face clouded with sadness. "She said it came from someone important. Said one day I'd understand." Andrew swallowed hard. Diana. The woman who had adopted one of the children from the orphanage he'd once funded, the orphanage that was shut down under mysterious circumstances just after he was forced to disappear from their lives. He offered her a ride home. She hesitated but eventually agreed. As they drove down the winding back roads, Andrew tried to remain composed, asking her small, safe questions. What school did she go to? Who was taking care of her now? "I live with my Aunt Renee and Uncle Leon," Maya said. "Been with them since Diana died. I've lived here since I was little." Andrew gripped the steering wheel. How little? I think since I was 3. Diana said I came from an orphanage. Little Angels, I think it was called, but it shut down. The air inside the car grew heavy. Andrew's heart pounded. Are you sure it was called Little Angels? Yes. Why? Maya asked. He didn't answer right away, just stared at the road ahead, blinking rapidly to push back the flood of memory. As they pulled up to a modest but lovingly maintained home, Maya unbuckled her seatbelt. Thanks for the ride, Mr. Whitaker. But before she got out, he reached into his coat and handed her a business card. Maya, if you ever need anything at all, call me. Please. She looked at the card, puzzled, then slipped it into her pocket with a nod. He watched her walk toward the house, sunlight dancing off the emerald ring, the same ring he'd once placed on a tiny finger in a forgotten orphanage, never expecting to see it again. And as the front door opened and Maya was greeted by laughter and warmth, Andrew Whitaker sat frozen in his car, realizing that the girl who had just fixed his car may have also just restored something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. Andrew sat frozen in his driver's seat, watching Maya race up the front steps of her modest home. The ring on her finger caught one last glint of sunlight before she disappeared inside. His hands trembled as he pulled out his phone. Get Ramirez on the line, he muttered. Now. What Maya couldn't have known, when she waved goodbye to the man with the expensive car, was that she had just ignited a chain reaction that would unravel secrets buried for over a decade. Secrets about a billion-dollar empire, about a forgotten orphanage, and about a little black girl who had an uncanny gift for fixing broken things, machines, and perhaps something more. Andrew barely slept for the next 3 nights. His private investigator sent enlarged images of the ring, confirming its crescent-shaped flaw. The emerald stone was unmistakable. It was the very ring Andrew had given to a small girl at the Little Angels orphanage, his way of making a silent promise that he'd come back for her. But he never did. Now, in the corner office of Whitaker Enterprises' glass tower, Andrew stood over his desk, surrounded by documents, scattered like puzzle pieces waiting to be reassembled. 12 years ago, his father, Howard Whitaker, had quietly acquired the Little Angels property for a fraction of its worth, using claims of financial mismanagement to force its closure. The land had since become the site of the Horizon Project, a luxury complex being touted as the family's next great legacy. Mr. Whitaker, his assistant called from the doorway. Legal's here with the Horizon files. Andrew straightened his tie just as Mr. Evans entered, briefcase in hand. I brought the original acquisition documents for the Little Angels site, Evans said, slightly puzzled. Your father insisted these stay in the archive. I'm not sure why we're digging them up. Andrew didn't answer. My father's retired. This is my company now. As he flipped through the pages, Andrew's gaze sharpened. There were no adoption records, no documented list of where the children were relocated. But Maya Johnson's name was there, circled in red ink. Next to it, 2 chilling letters. H.W. His phone buzzed. Ramirez again. I found something, the detective said. Diana Johnson. Died last year. Car crash. The brakes were tampered with. Andrew's throat tightened. And the adoption records? Gone, Ramirez replied. No paper trail. Legally, Maya Johnson never existed in that orphanage. Andrew's jaw clenched. Find out everything about the people she's living with. Everything. At that very moment, Maya sat cross-legged in the workshop behind her aunt and uncle's house, surrounded by tools, grease, and joy. Her sanctuary. On the workbench sat a dusty 1950S radio, now humming to life with a warm crackle. You fixed it? Uncle Leon asked, his face lighting up. Just had to reconnect a few wires, Maya said with a shy smile. Leon knelt beside her and gently rubbed her braided hair. You've got a gift, girl. I've never seen anyone who understands machines like you do. Maya looked down at her ring. You think my mom would be proud? Diana? Leon nodded. She'd be bursting. Maya hesitated. I met someone the other day. His car broke down. I fixed it. He saw my ring. And he got really weird. Leon's smile faded. What man? His name's Andrew Whitaker. She pulled a sleek business card from her backpack. He gave me this. Leon stared at the card like it burned his hands. He looked up as Renee stepped into the doorway, her face pale. Maya, Renee said gently. Remember when we told you we'd explain the truth about your mom when the time was right? I think that time is now. That night, as the wind whispered through the trees outside, Maya sat in the living room, a trembling envelope in her hands. Renee passed it to her with reverence. Your mother gave us this. Said to give it to you only if someone from the Whitaker family found you. With shaking fingers, Maya unfolded the letter. Dear Maya, if you're reading this, it means the past has caught up with us. There are truths you deserve to know. Meanwhile, at Andrew's penthouse overlooking the Boston skyline, his phone rang again. Sir, Ramirez said. There's someone else looking into the orphanage, a journalist, Marcus Hayes, and he has theories about why your father was so interested in certain kids. What theories? Andrew asked, dreading the answer. Well, that your father identified children with unique talents. Kids who weren't just orphans, but assets. Andrew sank into his chair, staring at the skyline. What had his family done? The next day, a sleek black SUV pulled up across from Maya's school. Two men in suits stepped out, watching her walk with friends. Vetter? One asked, nodding toward Maya. The girl with the ring, yes. Mr. Whitaker Sr. wants to see her, immediately. But what they didn't see, parked quietly across the street, was Uncle Leon. He watched them through the rearview mirror, clutching an old flip phone Diana had insisted he keep for emergencies. He dialed. The voice on the other end answered, Marcus Hayes. Leon took a breath. It's about little angels. You'll want to hear this story. At Whitaker Enterprises, the tension was suffocating. Andrew stood in his office, staring out at the skyline, when the door creaked open. Howard Whitaker, his father, had arrived without warning, fresh off a private jet from Florida. He carried himself like royalty, confident and calculating. What's this obsession with little angels? Howard demanded, voice sharp. Andrew turned slowly. I found her, Maya Johnson, the girl with the emerald ring. Howard froze, then scoffed. Just another orphan. What matters now is the Horizon Project. We're on the edge of a multi-billion-dollar expansion. Don't lose focus over sentiment. But Andrew didn't blink. She's not just any orphan. She's different. She fixed my car in minutes. She understood the problem instinctively. Howard's expression hardened. And you still don't understand what's at stake? Some children aren't just orphans, Andrew. They're assets. Gifts like hers can be monetized, controlled, militarized. With Andrew stared at his father. That's why you bought the orphanage, isn't it? Howard didn't deny it. What neither of them realized was that Maya had already read Deanna's letter. She now understood the truth. Her gift, the reason they had been hunted, and most shocking of all, what the emerald ring truly was. It wasn't just a keepsake. It was a key, and inside it, hidden in a secret compartment, was a device, one that could access a data vault capable of toppling the entire Whitaker empire. The puzzle pieces were falling into place. On one side stood the corporation, Whitaker Enterprises, willing to bury its secrets at any cost. On the other, a 10-year-old girl with an extraordinary mind and an emerald ring more valuable than any jewel on earth. Caught in the middle was Andrew Whitaker, now questioning everything he once believed. Upstairs on the 50th floor, the executive boardroom was buzzing. Howard had summoned an emergency meeting, and the mood was frantic. Suits shuffled papers, whispered, checked phones. Tension hung thick. "Where is my son?" Howard barked, slamming a palm against the glass table. The double doors creaked open. Andrew entered, calm, composed, and at his side walked a woman in a dark suit, eyes scanning the room like a hawk. "Sorry I'm late, Dad," Andrew said. "This is Claire Bennett, federal prosecutor. She has a few questions." Howard's face dropped. About what? He asked stiffly. Andrew clicked his laptop into the projector. Project Prometheus. Gasps echoed around the room. The code name, never uttered outside inner circles, belonged to the covert program aimed at identifying, isolating, and controlling children with unique cognitive or physical talents. The room darkened. The screen lit up. Names, images, reports, bank records, confidential adoption files, test results. 48 children. All targeted, all tracked, all altered. Howard's face turned gray. "What do you think you're doing?" he hissed. "This is classified. This is espionage." "No," Andrew said. "This is evidence. Unauthorized experiments, forged adoption records, bribery, coerced disappearances, threats, and more." Then the screen showed footage, grainy but unmistakable. A young woman, Deanna Johnson, fleeing into the night with a child cradled in her arms. Followed by another clip, Howard barking orders to armed security. "That girl has significant military potential. We can't let her get away." Andrew's voice cracked. 3 people died that month, including Diana's brother, killed after he started asking questions. Howard tried to speak, but the boardroom door swung open once more. Maya Johnson walked in. With her stood Uncle Leon, and a man with a camera slung around his neck. "Marcus Hayes, Boston Globe," he said. "We're here to document the truth." "Maya," Andrew said softly, "you didn't have to come." "I did," she replied, her voice stronger than anyone expected. "My mom always told me I'd have to face the people who made us run." Howard looked at her, eyes narrowing. "Project 17. I didn't expect you to be so small." Maya didn't flinch. "And you're the one who killed my mother, aren't you? Her brakes didn't just fail." Howard's mask cracked for a second, but then came the smirk. "You think you can prove anything? One phone call and this all disappears." Maya calmly set down her backpack, reached inside, pulled out the emerald ring, and twisted the stone. A soft click echoed in the silent room. A hidden compartment slid open. From it she retrieved a device, small, metallic, and humming with power. "I don't need to prove anything," she said. "This device does it for me." The screen behind Andrew flickered, and then erupted into a new feed. Data flooded in. Whistleblower audio, photos, video footage, emails. Years of corruption, buried under layers of corporate deceit, now out in the open. Howard stood frozen. His empire was unraveling, and it had started with a girl, fixing a broken Mustang on a country road. Maya's voice echoed clearly across the boardroom. "Diana was smarter than you ever gave her credit for," she said. She held up the ring, now opened to reveal a small data device tucked into its core. "This isn't just jewelry, it's storage. It contains encrypted backups of all Little Angel's records, including audio of your meetings with military officials. Meetings where you discussed exploiting children for cognitive warfare research." Andrew Whitaker, once untouchable, was speechless. Marcus Hayes, the journalist, adjusted his camera and nodded toward the live feed. "This is being streamed right now. We're broadcasting directly to social platforms. Over 10,000 people are watching, so I'd suggest you choose your words carefully." Andrew stepped beside his father. His voice was quiet but resolute. "It's over, Dad. The prosecutor offered me full immunity in exchange for cooperation. I accepted." Howard's jaw clenched, but he had no retort. When federal agents entered the room and read him his rights, Howard tried to maintain his dignity, but Maya stepped forward. "My mom used to tell me that broken machines can be repaired," she said gently. "But broken people have to choose to fix themselves. I hope you find that in prison." As Howard was escorted away, cameras captured the moment the Whitaker empire fell, live, raw, undeniable. In the following days, Whitaker Enterprises' stock crashed. Investigations unraveled decades of corporate abuse, unethical experimentation, and systemic corruption. Former allies distanced themselves. Howard's legacy was reduced to a cautionary tale. Andrew watched it unfold with a mixture of guilt and clarity. He had lost his inheritance, his name, and much of the life he once knew, but in doing so he reclaimed something far more valuable, his integrity. 1 week later, outside the federal courthouse, Maya found Andrew sitting on the steps. "What happens now?" she asked. The emerald ring still gleamed on her finger, but now it was a symbol of truth, not secrecy. Andrew looked up at the city skyline, the towering buildings that once bore his family's name. "Now," he said quietly, "we rebuild. Not just structures, but lives." Neither of them could have imagined that those words would become prophecy, because what began as the fall of an empire sparked a movement. 5 years later, on a bright spring morning, Maya Johnson, now 15, strode through the glass atrium of the newly inaugurated Johnson Center for Young Inventors. Built on the very land where the Little Angels orphanage once stood, the center now housed state-of-the-art labs, classrooms, and collaborative workshops. "The motion sensors in the east wing are still glitching," Maya said as she led a team of engineers. Her eyes scanned the digital interface effortlessly, diagnosing problems as instinctively as she once spotted the Mustang's leaking radiator. Behind the center, Andrew Whitaker stood talking with investors, not in a suit but in jeans and a button-up shirt. The former billionaire heir had donated his entire fortune to found the Prometheus Initiative, a non-profit that now scouted talented kids from underserved communities. "This quarter alone," he told a donor, "we've discovered 23 gifted students. All of them now have full scholarships, housing, mentorship, no contracts, no exploitation, just opportunity." For many who had once known Andrew as a cold corporate executive, his transformation was staggering. But to those at the Johnson Center, he was simply a man trying to repair the damage he inherited and redefine what legacy meant. Uncle Leon now directed the center's engineering mentorship program. "Maya's got 2 patents already," he said proudly. "She's about to file her 3rd. Harvard, MIT, and Stanford were already competing to bring her aboard." In the main hall, an exhibition wall told the entire story, from black and white photos of the old orphanage to news clippings about Whitaker Enterprises' collapse, to one bold headline framed at the center: "Girl with Emerald Ring brings billion-dollar empire to justice." Meanwhile, in a medium-setty federal prison, Howard Whitaker sat silently in his cell. Once the architect of immense power, he now lived in shadows, his assets seized, his name forever disgraced. He refused rehabilitation, still clung to delusions of rebuilding. But outside those walls, the world had moved on. That very evening, the Johnson Center hosted its first formal graduation ceremony. 12 young inventors, each from disadvantaged backgrounds, stood in front of cheering families, teachers, and donors. Every graduate left with either a job placement or a scholarship in hand. And though Maya was still too young to be among them, she was honored as their mentor. As applause quieted, she stepped onto the stage. The spotlight caught her ring, but the real light came from her voice. "When I was 10, she began, "I fixed a stranger's car on the side of the road. I didn't know who he was or how our stories were connected. But that day changed my life." She paused, scanning the crowd. Sometimes the smallest acts, kindness, curiosity, the courage to stop and help, can unlock truths bigger than we ever imagined. We can't always fix what's broken in the world, but we can start with what's right in front of us. And when we do, we can build something better. Thunderous applause followed. And as Maya stepped down, her heart full, her future wide open, one thing was certain. She had taken what was meant to silence her and turned it into a voice the world could no longer ignore. Maya stood before the graduating class, turning the emerald ring slowly on her finger. It no longer symbolized secrecy, silence, or the past. It had become a beacon of transformation, a reminder that even the smallest act of generosity, like helping a stranger on the side of the road, could unravel a web of exploitation and still pave the way for something better. From the back of the auditorium, Andrew watched, eyes glassy with tears. The girl who had once shattered his world had, in truth, given him a gift no asset or title ever could, a purpose worth living for. Maya continued, her voice steady. My mom, my real mom, Deanna, used to say, broken machines can be repaired, but broken systems, they need to be redesigned from scratch. She paused, looking around the room filled with young innovators and survivors. That's what we're doing here, not just fixing what was wrong, but building something entirely new. The next morning, Maya received a letter postmarked from Washington, D.C. The return address read, Victoria Whitaker. Howard's daughter, who had dropped the Whitaker name after the scandal, was now a federal prosecutor. Inside, her handwritten note read, Maya, we've uncovered 5 more orphanages with programs like Little Angels. Thanks to your testimony and the data you exposed, we were able to rescue and protect 37 children. Some of them share your gift. They're safe now. And when you're ready, they'd like to meet you. Maya read the letter aloud to Andrew, Uncle Leon, and Aunt Renee. As the final words settled in the air, so did the weight of what had been accomplished. What started as a roadside repair had ignited a silent revolution, one that didn't just challenge a corrupt system, but quietly rebuilt it from the ground up. You know what's ironic? Andrew said, shaking his head with a bittersweet smile. My father always said he was building a legacy. And he did, Maya replied, her gaze drifting out the window. Children ran across the courtyard of the Johnson Center, laughing, inventing, dreaming. Just not the one he imagined. She turned back. The real legacy isn't in buildings or balance sheets. It's in whether you leave the world better than you found it. As the sun began to set, the Johnson Center gathered for one final celebration. At the front entrance, a new sign was unveiled in bronze letters. Every talent deserves to be nurtured. Every child deserves to be free. It was more than a mission statement. It was a vow. A vow to never repeat the sins of the past. A vow to build something better, brick by brick, life by life. And as the light faded into twilight, it was clear. Maya's story wasn't just one of retribution, it was one of rebirth. Maya stood before the graduating class, turning the emerald ring slowly on her finger. It no longer symbolized secrecy, silence, or the past. It had become a beacon of transformation. A reminder that even the smallest act of generosity, like helping a stranger on the side of the road, could unravel a web of exploitation and still pave the way for something better. From the back of the auditorium, Andrew watched, eyes glassy with tears. The girl who had once shattered his world had in truth given him a gift no asset or title ever could, a purpose worth living for. Maya continued, her voice steady. My mom, my real mom Deanna, used to say, broken machines can be repaired, but broken systems, they need to be redesigned from scratch. She paused, looking around the room filled with young innovators and survivors. That's what we're doing here, not just fixing what was wrong, but building something entirely new. The next morning, Maya received a letter postmarked from Washington, D.C. The return address read, Victoria Whitaker. Howard's daughter, who had dropped the Whitaker name after the scandal, was now a federal prosecutor. Inside, her handwritten note read, Maya, we've uncovered 5 more orphanages with programs like Little Angels. Thanks to your testimony and the data you exposed, we were able to rescue and protect 37 children. Some of them share your gift. They're safe now, and when you're ready, they'd like to meet you. Maya read the letter aloud to Andrew, Uncle Leon, and Aunt Renee. As the final words settled in the air, so did the weight of what had been accomplished. What started as a roadside repair had ignited a silent revolution, one that didn't just challenge a corrupt system, but quietly rebuilt it from the ground up. You know what's ironic? Andrew said, shaking his head with a bittersweet smile. My father always said he was building a legacy. And he did, Maya replied, her gaze drifting out the window. Children ran across the courtyard of the Johnson Center, laughing, inventing, dreaming. Just not the one he imagined. She turned back. The real legacy isn't in buildings or balance sheets. It's in whether you leave the world better than you found it. As the sun began to set, the Johnson Center gathered for one final celebration. At the front entrance, a new sign was unveiled in bronze letters. Every talent deserves to be nurtured. Every child deserves to be free. It was more than a mission statement. It was a vow to never repeat the sins of the past. A vow to build something better, brick by brick, life by life. And as the light faded into twilight, it was clear Maya's story wasn't just one of retribution, it was one of rebirth. As the last echoes of applause faded into the night sky over the Johnson Center, Maya stood at the edge of the courtyard, watching the graduates celebrate with their families. Laughter rang out beneath the glowing lanterns, children played in the grass, and music hummed gently from the speakers. And yet, beneath the joy, something deeper stirred in Maya's chest. A quiet sense of responsibility, as vast and complex as the stars above her. The story had begun with a broken car and a stranger on a road, but it had grown into something no one, certainly not Maya, could have predicted. A buried truth had been unearthed. An empire of corruption had collapsed, and from that wreckage something bold, beautiful, and entirely new had taken root. It would be easy to let this become just a triumphant ending, but endings, Maya had learned, are never quite as final as they seem. Because even when evil is exposed, the scars remain. Even when justice is served, the silence of those who were never found still lingers. The world doesn't change in one courtroom or one press conference or one act of courage. The world changes in the quiet, repetitive labor of rebuilding, of choosing again and again, not just what to destroy, but what to become. And that is where the real story begins. Over the months that followed, Maya kept in touch with the rescued children. Some were thriving, others were still learning to trust the world again. A few, like her, had talents that made people nervous. One boy, Teo, could visualize mechanical structures in 3 dimensions after seeing them only once. Another girl, Lena, could crack encryption algorithms in her head. Their gifts were dazzling, yes, but what Maya understood best was this. They weren't valuable because of their abilities. They were valuable because they were children. Because they deserved to be loved, protected, and given the chance to live without fear. It was not their genius that made them worthy. It was their humanity. That realization became the foundation of every program at the Johnson Center. Yes, the curriculum included robotics, physics, programming, and design. But it also included ethics, civic responsibility, storytelling, and emotional literacy. No one left the center just knowing how to innovate. They left knowing how to care. Because the greatest tragedies in history, Maya realized, had rarely happened because of lack of intelligence. They happened because brilliant people forgot how to be kind. Andrew Whitaker, once the cold face of empire, underwent a transformation just as profound. For a man who had once lived in corner offices and penthouse suites, his new life was startlingly simple. He lived in a modest apartment above a bookstore. He donated his earnings as a consultant to scholarships and food programs, and he refused every attempt to feature him in media stories or documentaries. "I don't need to be the hero," he told Maya one afternoon as they sorted boxes of donated electronics. "I just need to be useful." He had come to understand something that his father never did. Legacy is not about power. It's about presence, about the way you show up in people's lives when no one is watching, about how you treat them